This video focuses on how to develop rubrics that point students towards future learning as opposed to simply just reminding them of mistakes or only telling them where they're at now. Now there's a few different things that go into this. So I have up here an example of one of the rubrics I use. I call them HyperRubrics, building off the idea of a hyperdoc. But the idea is that it's a living, breathing thing. It's not just stagnant, it's not just a place to record scores, but it has ways for students to interact with it. And there's a couple important things I want to point out about how to build these. The first one is that when you're looking at the different levels here, each level identifies a concrete skill or a concrete concept for the student to learn to be able to move up to that next level. Now, the way that I did this is by unpacking the essential learning, right? So I went in here and found this is what I want them to learn, and then took the time to figure out what are the concepts or the steps along the way that build up to this understanding. I used to most often use more of a qualitative style to a rubric where I would say things like, for example, this is building complete sentences that are varied. I would say things like, I make numerous errors in my writing, right? Not only is the language focused on a deficit mindset, but it's hard for the student to pin down. And if this is numerous errors and this is few errors, well, I don't know what those errors are that I need to cut down on. And so instead of using words like some, a lot, a few, things like that, my goal is that I'm really being clear about what the student needs to learn to move up to the next level. So that's step one, build a progression of learning that's embedded in your rubric levels. And then step two, each of these levels has a link that helps the student be able to access the resources they need to engage in that next step, in that next learning. The goal with this is that if a student is marked as, say, approaching, not only can they click on this link to figure out why they're there or make sure that they understand that, they also have access to the next link over that will help them figure out how to move forward. It's a focus on the next learning the student has to do as opposed to emphasizing where the student is now or the mistakes that they made. And so again, the goal with this is that we're tightening that or we are lessening the gap between feedback and access to resources. Because the goal is that the instant the student gets feedback, they can find the resources they need to take them to the next level. This is one way that I have found with my students to be really valuable in making that gap smaller and making the learning clearer for my students.